In the aftermath of Mark Freestone's terrible crash at Talladega, it now appears very likely that officials will slow the cars down when we head to New York late in the season. However, some people are calling for superspeedways to be dropped from the schedule entirely, especially because we have had more than one serious accident at these tracks in recent years. For those that remember, Eric Jackson could not drive for the rest of the 2011 season after his accident at Alberta. The Empire Rent-A-Car Drive the Dream program, which Freestone was driving for, will be suspending operations for at least the next couple of races. Freestone himself is still with us, although we are not sure what the future has in store for him. And now, on to the Carbondale Duels. Thank you, Earl. Herbie Finkelberg took the Cromwell Pole Award for round number 1. Robert Scott qualified on the outside of the front row. Both Finkelberg and Scott get a pretty good start heading off into turn number 1, but we've already got a car slow. That is Tiffany Matthews in the 116. She has blown her engine right at the start, and we've got more problems towards the back as Ryan Matthews, her husband, spins out. Jacob Eichholz and Jason Bates get into the wall. Nick Azuri in the 46A gets a piece of that as well. Everybody gets bunched up behind the 116, and Ryan Matthews gets tagged by Bigsby Foot, and he goes up into the wall. But that's not terribly surprising to see when cars get bunched up behind somebody running slow. And then Jason Bates and Jacob Eichholz get together, also held up by the 116. Bates goes into the wall. This has been quite the disastrous start to this race, and especially for Tiffany Matthews, as you see Ben Atkins and Jason Bates colliding under yellow. Let's try this again. Herbie Finkelberg leads on the restart with Andy Pearson and Joseph Howard right behind him. These are two veterans of the racing world, but Herbie Finkelberg is doing a pretty good job holding his own right now. And right as I say that, Andy Pearson peeks to the inside of the 96 car, but he's got to check up in turn number 2. He doesn't have enough momentum, and Finkelberg will keep the lead. A few moments later, Joseph Howard tries to pull off an outside pass on Andy Pearson. We haven't seen too many people take advantage of that outside lane, although it proved to be very fast in practice. Coming off of turn number 2, Pearson is not giving up. They're still fighting in 3, but Howard is going to have a lot of speed up off the corner. And Howard, one of the winners at Daytona, will move into the second spot. Last week at Talladega, Leslie Riggs blew her engine and then crashed at the same time. However, today she is running up in the top 5. What a fantastic recovery for Riggs, who has had one of the fastest cars all weekend. And right behind her is Yevgeny Kuznetsov in the 82, who has also had a very fast car. Both of these drivers could be a threat later on. A bad day gets worse for Jacob Eichholz as he blows his engine on lap 10. The beginning of the season has not been kind to Eichholz. He did not do terribly well at Daytona or Talladega, and now this happens. AJ Young in the 02 blew up on lap 10 as well, so Young should be able to give Eichholz some company on their way back to the garage. Vijay Pushanda in the Pi car is in the top 10, but he is barely hanging on to that spot in the moment as he is battling with Libby Bell for the position, with Seiju Dejao breathing down his neck as well. Pushanda had a massive crash at Talladega that sent him flying through the air, although he seems to have brushed that off and is having a very good run in the Mack Motors car so far. Darren Grant in the 20 for Cash Racing has not made too much noise, although today he is running up inside the top 15. And right behind him is Jared Worth, having another great run in that 08 car. And Worth isn't even running the full schedule. I'd say Worth has a pretty bright future ahead of him if he keeps this up. Darren Grant, in the meantime, starts to fall back, losing positions to Jared Worth and David Krikorian. On lap 32, Joseph Howard comes into the pits. This is much too early for routine pit stops. He must have some kind of problem with the car, but I haven't heard anything from the MRD pit. At the same time, Ryan Matthews has blown up after his race turned sour on the first lap. That's also 2 engine failures in the same race for Matthews Motorsports, so I'm sure they'd like to be getting out of here as soon as possible. Robert Scott inherited the second position after Joseph Howard hit the pit lane, and right behind him, Yevgeny Kuznetsov has worked his way up to third. Herbie Finkelberg continues to lead this race. It looks like the Joseph Howard stop was scheduled after all. He rejoined the field 1 lap down, but he's been cutting his way through traffic like he's the star of a bad racing movie. It looks like Howard might be counting on picking through cars that are running on older tires, and then eventually they would have to make green flag pit stops, and so when everything cycles out, he'll have a huge advantage, but I'd say that's pretty wishful thinking, though it'll still be interesting to see what could possibly come of that. Edwin Schwartzlowski has made his way up into the top 15 after a mediocre qualifying run. Schwartzlowski had one of the fastest cars at Talladega and was leading at the time the race was called. So far, Schwartzlowski does not quite seem to be matching that performance, although he is making some progress. Kyle Gaffigan's got a mechanical problem on lap 47, and his car is going to slow to a stop at the exit of the first corner. And that brings out a caution, as his teammate Howard is still running a lap down, waiting for a strategy to play out, but that's not going to happen. Some will probably call Gaffigan the world's worst teammate, but there was nothing he could do about his car breaking down like that. And now Edwin Schwartzlowski blows up coming to the restart. The field had pitted under caution and he had worked his way up to 5th, but the unreliability of the M&J engines strikes again. Andy Pearson leads on the restart. Herbie Finkelberg fell back to 3rd after pit stops. Joseph Howard is on the tail end of the lead lap. He's stayed out, but Howard is now the one on the older tires, so he lost the advantage that he had after he pitted. The MRD cars block the track as Vijay Pushanda breathes down Andy Pearson's neck. And now Pushanda makes a bid for the lead. He's got Le Gruel on the inside right behind him. But Pushanda is held up by Gaffigan off of 3, and Andy Pearson is going to keep the lead at the line. But coming into turn 1, Andy Pearson runs the turn very wide, opening up the door for Pushanda once again. But the MRD cars are still in the way and spoiling this battle. Pearson is holding his own on the outside. They're still side by side coming into turn 3, but this time around Pushanda is able to do a better job at staying with the two. Coming to the line, Pearson leads the lap once again, but then Pushanda would be able to finally take the lead a few moments later, and now here he is trying to wrestle his way past Joseph Howard. Howard is going a lap down once again. With Howard dispatched, Pushanda now just has to try to get around Kyle Gaffigan in the 37. But we got another caution on lap 60, this time involving Leslie Riggs as Mike Andrews pushes up into her. Riggs doesn't like it, hits him back. Then Andrews hits her again, putting both cars in the wall. Jared Worth gets stuck behind them. James West clips the 08 car. And that is going to take James West out of the race. There is no reason for this to happen at all. We've got 40 laps to go, and Mike Andrews just decides to start driving like it's the last lap. Pushanda continues to lead on the restart in what has been one of the best performances for Math Motors so far. Le Gruel is in 2nd, but he gets stuck with the MRD cars on his inside. Herbie Finkelberg is in 3rd, looking to make a charge back up towards the front. Finkelberg's teammate and car owner, David Krikorian, has now worked his way up into the top 5 after a less than stellar qualifying effort. He's got Bigsby Foote right behind him. Foote has been nowhere near the front all day. However, Yevgeny Kuznetsov directly in front of them has been lurking around in the top 5 for most of the race. Finkelberg gets stuck behind Kyle Gaffigan. Oh, contact between Finkelberg and Yevgeny Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov seems to be getting a bit antsy as the laps wind down. Pushanda has been able to pull out to a very convincing lead. Math Motors struggled in their first season last year. They ran on a partial schedule, strapped for cash, but this season they have acquired enough sponsorship to go for the full schedule. And Pushanda, the former Formula Overdrive driver, has been doing a fantastic job for them so far. Lane Cranston in the 114 has now gone up in smoke. These first few races have been a complete disaster for MT Motorsports. They've already had an engine failure in the rookie shootout. They've gotten involved in crashes at Daytona and Talladega, and now this happens. Back to Vijay Pushanda. The handling on that pie car seems to have fallen off a bit because Herbie Finkelberg has been catching him very quickly, and now Libby Bell is running up in the 3rd spot. Where did she come from? Both Pushanda and Finkelberg are looking at their first career wins. Libby Bell has already won a race in her rookie season at Albuquerque last year, and look at how much Finkelberg has been able to close on the pie car. Pushanda really seems to be a sitting duck right now, and here comes Finkelberg making a run on the outside. Again, we saw in practice that passes on the outside line are possible, but nobody's really risked trying it yet. And now Finkelberg, whose handling seems to be far superior to Pachanda's right now, is trying to make it work. And into turn 1, Finkelberg gets a huge run into the corner. Pachanda tries to battle back in the middle, but Finkelberg just carries too much speed off the corner, and Herbie Finkelberg will reassume control of the race. But then Finkelberg gets trapped behind the lap car of Gary D'Souza. Pachanda desperately tries to close back in. Finkelberg is unable to find a way around the 149 car. Pachanda peeks to the inside. Libby Bell is closing in on this battle as well. And coming into turn number 1, Pachanda gets a huge run into the corner and peeks ahead of the 96, but then Finkelberg gets around the 149 car. Libby Bell now gets trapped behind the 149 and starts to lose sight of the leaders as Finkelberg powers back around VJ Pachanda, or at least tries to. Pachanda tries to hold his own, but Finkelberg is just too much for him, and Herbie Finkelberg will come around to take his first career ARLA Elite Series victory. A hard-fought battle by VJ Pachanda comes up short, but what a fantastic effort for Pachanda and the Math Motors team today. Herbie Finkelberg, as you'll notice, scored a perfect 115 points. Winning the race gets you 105 points, and then leading the most laps and winning the pole gets you 5 points each. Both Speed Vision cars made the top 5, with David Krikorian finishing 4th, and 2 of the PSI cars ended up in the top 5, with Libby Bell 3rd and Bigsby Foot in 5th. Yevgeny Kuznetsov continues to impress with his 6th place finish. Laura Cyrus is 7th. Blake Ruel is 8th. Those Zenith cars have been very strong so far this season, if not a bit unreliable. Alex Carson finished a very quiet 9th, and then Rybert Scott rounds out the top 10 after having a top 5 car in the early part of the race. And now let's begin round 2. Namimura has taken the Smash Beer Pole Award with Benji Flynn on her outside. And Mura gets off to a very good start. Benji Flynn falls back. Bill Tissam in the 07 started 3rd, but now he is going for 2nd, as Mura leads off of turn number 1. And Mura would pull away from everybody in the opening laps. She had a very fast car in practice, and today could be the same. Jessica Graham in the 59 makes her way to 4th, but then she blows her engine in the opening laps. She can't make her way onto the apron with everybody passing her on the inside, and she gets tagged on the back by Todd Wlodarczyk in the 71. And this sets off a chain reaction of cars piling in. Wlodarczyk goes over, and so does Graham. That's Lawrence Burr in the 9 sitting there on the track, and I think it was Jarko Forsström that hit the 71. Graham just kind of pulled down in front of the 71 who had nowhere to go. And then Graham gets hit by, I think that's one of the Doppelgang cars. And then Lawrence Burr came flying in and propelled the 71 into the 59 car. And Nami Mura has blown her engine under yellow. Mura had such a promising car this weekend, and now it has all gone up in smoke. Mura got into an accident at Daytona, so Kurt Walker Motorsports really did not need this for their morale. This means that Benji Flynn would inherit the lead. For the restart, Bobby Porteau in the 74 is right behind him. Flynn is probably facing a lot of pressure from Porteau, who won the 2010 ARLA Elite Series Championship, and now he has returned to the series with backing from the Mitchell & Sons Team Master Cup team. But Flynn is doing a good job holding his own. The Dulles cars have been pretty fast in practice. Another car that's been very fast was Bill Tissam in the 07, who just executed a pass on the outside for the 2nd spot, and he wastes no time trying to close up on the 36 of Flynn. Tissam is driving the Tonnerre Thunderbolt. When Tonnerre first broke into ARLA at Rockford in 2010, they were very, very fast in the qualifying races. So this kind of performance from that car is really not all that surprising. Kurt Walker, making his first start of the season, is going to get tagged by Mac Ryland in the 86X, and Walker goes spinning into the infield with a bit of help from Drew Eisenman. However, the caution does not come out. Kurt Walker has scaled back to a part-time schedule so he can focus more on being a team owner. He fields the 39 and 91 cars of Seiju Deizhou and Namimura. Makoto Yamada has been very impressive in the opening laps of the race, running in 4th with the struggling Big Mac Racing team. This team has been active since 2011, and they have not been very fast. But Yamada's been fantastic in that car today as he tries to fend off an attack from Ebenezer Kuggles in the Division by Zero car. The Doppelgang is making their debut this week. This team entered cars 81 and 01 with George Bryan and Brian George at the wheel, and those cars look exactly the same. They have been an absolute nightmare for the scoring tower, as well as right here in the booth. I don't even know which car that is or who is in it. However, we do know that one of the doppelganger cars got taken out in that lap 5 accident, so we just have to do some digging around to try to identify this car. Nonetheless, this team is having a very pleasant debut so far, running up in the 6th spot with whoever that is. Jason Teller has blown up in the Zenith on lap number 18. We've already had many engine failures today, although Lake Ruel, Teller's teammate, did not have any sort of mechanical problems in round number 1. Here is Derek Dudding in the Team Burr 68 car, going a lap down, and not making life too difficult for Bill Tissam and Bobby Porteau, surprisingly. Dudding has told us that he is very motivated coming into this weekend, as he has been on a hot streak in his other racing endeavors. He just grabbed his 3rd 50cc Mario Kart championship. To celebrate, he was treated to french fries at Greaseburger by his mother. Defending series champion Kevin Monroe is running up inside the top 10. He blew his engine at Daytona and finished last in his race, so Monroe is doing a pretty good job at getting back on his feet. Late model driver Trey Ashby is running up inside the top 10 in his ARLA Elite Series debut for Brinson Engineering. Team owner Matt Brinson claims that he is the first team owner with a college degree in engineering, but Brinson is clearly unaware of half of the people in the garage. Leader Benji Flynn is encountering even more lap traffic, and that has brought Bobby Porteau and Bill Tissam closer to him. Tissam tries to make a run on the outside, but he is impeded by Patrick Henderson, and Flynn will keep the lead as Bobby Porteau now cuts down and takes the 2nd spot from Tissam. Bobby Porteau is now going to make a bid for the lead on the outside. However, the leaders are now coming across Drew Eisenman, who impedes the 74 car. Bill Tissam is still up there, and now Ebenezer Quiggles Jr. has emerged as a contender early on. The leaders then encounter more lap traffic, this time the Team Burr cars of Derek Dudding and Paul Lyons. Flynn and Porteau get through without much of a problem. Quiggles takes 3rd from Tissam. And now coming into turn 1, Bobby Porteau looks to the inside of Benji Flynn, but Flynn has a lot of momentum off the corner, and he will keep the lead despite Paul Lyons being in front of him through the corner. Michael Madrigal on the 64 has to come into the pits. I believe Madrigal had a cut tire, and he will fall a lap down. Ebenezer Quiggles Jr. decides that he wants 2nd from Bobby Porteau, and here he comes, making it look easy as he gets by Porteau on the outside in turn 2. Allie Riggs blows up on lap 42. This will be the 2nd race in a row where she fails to finish. She won 3 races and finished 2nd in the championship last season, but the way things have been going early on this year, it's going to be a while before she can match that performance. Ebenezer Quiggles has closed in on Benji Flynn. Quiggles has been very fast in these last few laps, but he just can't quite get by the 36. Quiggles became the first driver from Sealand to compete in the ARLA Elite Series after a successful venture in the TM Lights. But a few laps later, here comes Quiggles with a run around the outside, the same way he got by Bobby Porteau, and Quiggles will assume the lead of the race as you saw the still unidentified doppelganger car coming into the pits with a blown engine. Well, with both those cars out of the way, that'll be one less headache. Benji Flynn continues to lose positions as Bobby Porteau gets by him, and now Bill Tissam is going to make a run at the 36 cars, so the handling must have fallen off on Benji Flynn's car. But a few moments later, Bobby Porteau decides to come in for a scheduled green flag pit stop. He will be followed into the pits by Makoto Yamada in the 22. Waiting on a few more, Scott Dalitz, Harry S. Enola. See if anybody else comes in. There is Kiriki Hitsuno in the 6, Kevin Monroe, and Nicole Moreno. Quiggles, Tissam, and Flynn will come in on the next lap. Todd Stater stays out for a couple of extra laps and picks up the lead doing so, although I'm not sure why he did that, as drivers are no longer awarded bonus points for just leading a lap. With the second caution towards the end of the pit cycle as Shane Blake slaps the wall coming off at turn number 2, and he comes back up onto the track into Trey Ashby, taking both cars into the wall. But don't worry, I'm sure team owner Matt Brinson can use that great and mighty college degree of his to buff out those dents on the 12 car. Bobby Porto leads on the restart. There are several cars off the lead lap thanks to that long green flag run we had. Scott Morales in the 78 races with Porto into turn number 1 to try to get his lap back, but that doesn't work out quite so well for him. And we've got a wreck in the back. Nicole Moreno punts Michael Madrigal into Benji Flynn. Flynn bounces back into traffic and will go spinning after a shunt from Barton Sandy in the 999 car. Flynn had one of the fastest cars of the day, and now he falls out of contention due to a wreck not of his own doing. And it was a wreck between a couple of lap cars, no less. And here's Bill Tissam, another one of today's front runners with trouble. His engine expires, coming to the restart, just like what we saw with Edwin Schwartzlowski in round number 1, although this is probably going to be more gut-wrenching for the 07 team as they were very fast for much of the race. Bobby Porto continues to lead over Ebenezer Quiggles Jr. It looks like it's going to be these two cars duking it out for the win. Bobby Porto has 3 career wins and the 2010 championship, while Quiggles in his rookie season is pursuing his first victory. Rounding out the top 5 are 3 drivers we haven't seen anywhere towards the front all day long. Scott Dalitz is 3rd, trying to avenge his fallen teammate. Bob Steffens is 4th, and then Todd Stater is 5th. Kiriki Hitsuno behind Stater is lurking back in 6th in car number 6. Coming off of turn number 2, Todd Stater makes a bid for 4th, but Steffens is going to have the momentum coming off of the corner, keeping Stater at bay. With just a few laps to go, Bobby Porto encounters the lap cars of Derek Dunning and Patrick Henderson, who both slap the wall off of 2. That could have been a disaster for our leaders. However, Porto is able to get by the lap cars without further incident, and Porto will pull away to a lead too much for Quiggles to make up, and Bobby Porto takes his first win for the Michelin Sons team. Quiggles blew his engine at Daytona, but he comes back strong with a 2nd place finish. Scott Dalitz finishes 3rd. I believe that's his best career finish. Bob Steffens is 4th. Todd Stater is 5th after a rather slow start to the season. Kiriki Hitsuno finishes 6th. She crashed in her race at Daytona. Trey Ashby, despite getting into that accident with Shane Lake, comes back to finish 7th. Benji Flynn also bounces back to finish in the top 10 after getting into a wreck. And then Harry Asinola and Nikos Kostopoulos round out the top 10 after they have some very, very quiet runs. In fact, I believe that this is the first career top 10 for Kostopoulos, so congratulations to him and the Garcia Aragon Motorsports team. And now let's take a look at the point standings after 2 races have been completed. Herbie Finkelberg is the points leader with 183 points. Libby Bell and Vijay Pushanda are tied for 2nd, 13 points back. Leigh Gruel is 4th, 1 point behind Bell and Pushanda. Yevgeny Kuznetsov is having a very strong showing with that Rus Autosport team. He is 5th in the point standings. Casey Campbell, one of the winners at Daytona, is 6th. Laura Cyrus is 7th. Tyson Lautenschlager is 8th. Seiju Dejao is 9th. And Andy Pearson is 10th. And now here are 11th through 20th. Ashley Tucker is 11th, despite crashing at Daytona and not doing much today, although I'm sure those 25 points from the rookie shootout victory help. Robert Scott is tied for 12th with Leslie Riggs. They both have 146 points. Kelvin Arailer is 14th. Joseph Howard is 15th. David Krikorian and Bigsby Foote are tied for 16th. Alex Carson is 18th. Taylor Brillin 19th, and then Ricky Navarro rounds out the top 20.